Welcome back to Carry On Sailing. So I'm James, this is Bobby.
Hi there.
And we're just going to go through some of the bits and pieces of the things that have worked and which haven't worked on board Apocalypse, this ORC 57 hull number 2. And hopefully some of the information we provide you is either going to educate you or help you understand about what suppliers we think are good and what equipment is good. I promised we would do this quite a while ago, and we've been out of action for a while with various commitments and responsibilities. So here you go, hope you enjoy it. Bob and Albert are in a Takkakat, and if I'm not mistaken, this is the 350 Takkakat. And we just want to tell you some of the things about the Takkakat and the outboard that we think are great.
Yeah, I mean, the Suzuki 9.9 needs no introduction. Fantastic outboard. We've had no problems with it, really. We're using it for about 14 months now, non-stop, throughout the summer, lots of heavy use. And with the Takkakat, you have the option of putting on these big, strong brackets to hold, I think it's up to a 12 horsepower engine, and the 10 works great. With the Takkakat, it's designed for sort of, one person, two person use, so it's very lightweight. And we can drag it up onto the sand, onto the beach, single-handed with no effort at all.
Yeah, I think that's quite an important point, isn't it,
Yeah.
Bobby? Like, a lot of people get a dinghy that's way too heavy for them.
Exactly.
And especially when you're in tidal regions, it's a nightmare. So it's really, really handy. And as people try and milk that cash cow, tying a dinghy to a dock somewhere in a marina, they try and charge you some 30 euros.
Exactly,
Super
and
irritating.
you can avoid that completely, which is what we're all about. And of course, with a boat like Apocalypse, we're not dragging any tenders behind us. So with the lightweight, it helps us hoist it up and get it on the back. So if you have it on your topping lift, it's great. I would say the rudder stock's a little bit flimsy.
The oarlocks, basically.
Oarlocks,
Yeah, the glue came off. It was just basically glue. Very early on.
And it's got the catamaran design here. So yeah, she's fast. She works great. Water comes over. That's absolutely okay if you're in the tropics, but that's with 3-4 people max. You don't really want that many people on it anyway.
There's an open transom on it as well, Bobby, which means that it doesn't hold water or rubbish in it.
Exactly.
So when you come back to it, it's always dry.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
a great advantage.
It dries out pretty much instantly. Any sand you brought from the beach with you washes out through. Yeah, it's pretty good. Elba loves it. Not a bad dinghy at all.
Yeah, I'd say that you have the advantage, because it's light, its sea keeping would maybe be a little bit more frisky.
Yes,
as far as comfort goes, but actually I think it's more able in bad weather. Although the ride isn't as comfortable, but I think you could handle more rough stuff in it.
Yes,
Yeah, do you agree?
The high winds, of course, there's not much weight on the bow.
Yeah, so lean forward on it, basically.
You do have to lean forward.
So the point is, I think, to summarise this whole Takkakat thing, I definitely wouldn't choose any other outboard at the moment, apart from that Suzuki fuel injection 4-stroke. It's unbelievable on fuel economy.
Absolutely.
But I think it does take an element of more skill to keep your feet dry. It's got to take a little bit easier going astern, particularly. But I would say, apart from the fact that the oarlocks have gone with the glue just coming off.
Well, we spend 2/3 of the year at anchor, really, and which is why we have this boat. And going from anchorage to shores, it's absolutely perfect.
Perfect. Yeah. So we'd definitely buy one again, wouldn't we, Bobster?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Alba's absolutely keen. You can see as soon as we're in the dinghy, she thinks she's going for a walk.
She does.
You see, this duct tape is actually where we normally have our ACS system. And although it's no fault of the ACS system, the supply voltage, actually, we didn't have a DC converter on it, so it was getting 24 volts, and it runs off 12 volts. So we were a little bit, it's a little bit frustrating. But anyway, again, the shipyard have said, listen, we're going to replace that, get the parts fixed and get it returned back to you. So that's why we've got this duct tape here. One of the other things that we promised we'd give you an update on are these jammers. And I have to say now that once everybody gets used to how they operate, which is mainly, you can see they're open at the moment, that is still open. All right, still open there, but when you pull this trigger, then it'll go one way but not the other. Great. The only thing I would say is about them, if you have cold hands, that trigger can be quite hard to engage, but just a bit of PTFE spray helps. But the best thing I think for maintenance is, for maintaining them, you just take these 4 torque screws or hex screws out, You take them out, and then you can clean this whole mechanism very, very easily. It's quite simple, and remember, simple on a boat is good. And the great advantage, of course, which is why I selected them, is that they can release. You know, if I close this, if that line's under load, to release it, instead of just putting it on the winch, loading the winch, we can just simply open it like that. Job done.
Harken 990, what a piece of kit. We use this. This is the most used equipment on the boat, really. And for the J1, you can crank some serious tension on that puppy. So it's fantastic. It has a triple speed action, so you can really fine tune the sail, and high speed. So when you're doing jibes or tacks, you can swing that foresail over really efficiently. Like every winch, you've got to maintain it, and it's engineered in a way whereas the average person can take it apart and service it and clean it in 20 minutes maximum.
Yeah, we haven't really had, although the loads are much higher, we've been very impressed with how easy it is to maintain. At first it's a bit intimidating, you think, but then...
It looks scary, but it isn't.
Yeah, it's really, really good. And then also we just replaced a little pin, which I think is a genius idea. There's a little pin which is basically a fuse in it. So that self-tailer, if you point to it there, Bobby, the self-tailing part, if that gets caught in something, it breaks the kind of fuse pin.
Yes, it's like a sacrificial pin that any high tension, that small pin snaps and nothing major. Yeah. And we replaced that last week. And yeah, jobs are good. And so it's exactly what it's engineered for.
Yeah, so, impressed. Well, although they are expensive, I think they're well worth it. I think for our purposes.
Yes,
yeah, definitely.
They're necessary as well.
Yeah. Although the covers are on the NKE autopilot and instruments that you see in front of you, and that Bobby's going to point to there. But yeah, you can see the covers are on them. We just save them from the sunlight. But we found to be, as advertised and as everybody has told us, is extremely reliable. We really haven't had any problems with it. We did have a little bit of a minor problem with the rudder sensor, but it was because our deck shower at the back here, next to where Bobby is, we have a deck shower here, and basically on the transom, the looping of the deck shower inside the hull, underneath underneath in this kind of tech space where the engines are, it would basically knock the rudder sensor, but it was quite easy to fix and job done. So that was our fault, really. But yeah, I have to say, really, really, really happy so far. Wind instruments, no problems, everything's working as advertised. Glad we didn't go for the NMEA stuff. Yeah, so another addition that we've added to the cockpit here, particularly if we get a big fish or if one of the other freezers or fridges fail. Got this as a backup. And I have to say, if I was looking back in time, I would probably think about incorporating that into the seat there, making half as much and pushing that back a little bit. We could do that later, but I've got a dive compressor and some storage in that bench seat. But I think, so far, the beauty about this is it runs off DC power, which is more efficient. Off the batteries, it can run directly off the batteries, which we've got a 12 volt and 24 volt outlet here. Or you can just run it off AC power, but it's more reliable and smarter to run it off DC power in case your inverter fails. But two separate compartments. One we've got as a freezer at the moment. You must click it like that when it's closed, and then an additional fridge. And this came in useful for us already, actually, because one of our freezers failed, and it's Webasto. One of the things that I didn't want on the vessel was Webasto stuff at all. I had a lot of problems with their stuff in the past, and an evaporator which I'll show you in the videos. An evaporator failed, but again, Grand Large Yachting have been incredible in supporting me as far as getting warranty stuff replaced. So don't underestimate that. Remember, Grand Large had no obligation to support me, or after the financial problems of Marston and Composites have now been taken over by Grand Large. They had no obligation to do that. But I find one of the managing directors, his name is Xavier Demerset, and absolute gentleman. He had no obligation to help us, and he did anyway. You don't meet that often in business, I think you'll all agree. So, if I got older, I was more incapacitated, wanted to step down the power levels on a boat or whatever, for me, definitely one of the considerations would be, if I was going to single-handed as an older person, like maybe a Garcia or an Allure, which is Garcia is a bit more Puron Expedition aluminium vessel, whereas the Allure would be on the faster side of things, lighter, faster vessel. Yeah, definitely would consider that. And obviously if you've got crew and you've got the money, gunboat. So yeah, this is one of the freezers that I was talking about just a few seconds ago, and the evaporator went in this, and they're really quite simple. You have the compressor, and then that sends the chilled gas to the evaporator, which just does the cooling part. What's interesting about this system is it's kind of like a ground source pump. It uses the water temperature as part of the circuit to cool the compressor. It's going to work fine in cold territories where we are at the moment, and it's cold here, but I want to check up on that one and see if that system works as we start going into the tropical water, because the temperature difference obviously is not going to be as much. It certainly assists it, but that domestic outside, it doesn't work off any of those kind of systems, just straight up cooling. So it'll be interesting to compare and contrast how these all pan out in the end, you know. This is a NEF oven, and it's just an AC normal kitchen oven, but I've got to say, compared to Carry On, one of the best things about it, it's going to use more power, than your average, like a gas oven, which are terrible, by the way, on a boat. The gas ovens are terrible, and also you don't want gas on a boat. But this is an AC powered, so it runs off the inverter, or when we're on shore power. But I have to say, we've been blown away with how good this is a NEF from a company called NEF. And yeah, we're super impressed with it. I know it seems a bit over the top to talk about on a sailing channel, but has quite good functions like the Serco roasting, it's called, which basically, for any of the crew, when we do, particularly chicken wings and stuff like that, phenomenal, and really good boost and morale. So, yes. So Tomas is here on board Apocalypse, and he's very kindly done some testing already. We've got the floorboards lifted up at the moment, and the compressor is running fine, but unfortunately with a little bit of testing and his tools, he's found that actually the evaporator is what's causing us the problem. It's a leak. So you can see the connections there right in the center of your screen, the copper connections. So basically, he's coming with a new evaporator for us, which the evaporator is the part that is inside the freezer itself. So he's going to replace that for us. And that's obviously thanks to Grand Large Yachting. Have since they've taken over ORC, they've said they're going to do this work for me for under warranty, which is amazing. While I'm down here, you can see a little bit of the handiwork. So this is the Wallace diesel heater, and what we found out is the unit on the other side wasn't exhausting properly, and I have to say that if I was ever going to buy another diesel heater, there's no question it would be from this company, Wallace. Their support has just been incredible, and we did a big report and analysis and everything. They were super diligent, called me in fact the night I sent an email, and to find out what the problem was. And if you could see at the top there, that's the exhaust coming out. And what we found out was that the diameter of the hosing for that exhaust wasn't adequate, and it was causing a bit of back pressure, and therefore the burning wasn't right. And what's also really interesting about diesel heaters is obviously they're diesel, and in order for diesel to be adequately flammable, it's vaporized, right? So it's another safety feature in a way that you might get a bit of smoking, but you won't get an immediate fire from the burner using these diesel heaters. So it's smart. But I would say, although these Wallace heaters are a little bit heavier, you're getting the implication that they're more robust, and I have to say they are. And there's a Bluetooth connection. So what you can't see, we've got our tools out at the moment, but that exhaust basically goes all the way out there, goes out through the boat. And then this is the ducting. See that kind of silver ducting runs all the way through the boat to give the hot air. And the hot air comes out. I have two vents there under the desk. The black one is for the diesel heater, and then the white one is actually for the small air conditioning unit that I've got, just a little bit more forward of the unit. So a little bit messy here at the moment, but that's what it's like when we're working on a boat. Nav station here, and I still feel very, very strongly about making sure that I use as little NMEA as possible. But you all asked me for an update on how this stuff is working, and there's one that I have to say I'm really blown away by, which is this. I continue to be impressed by it, which is this digital switching from a company called Shaber. And you remember from my previous videos, I'm a little bit wary about digital switching. Now, we did have one flaw with it, but this is what I'm talking about with as far as service. I basically downloaded the entire memory of the system, you know, a copy of it, sent it over the internet to Shaber. They examined it, and within 24 hours, Shaber got back to me and said, we've reset your system, you know, for the problems that occurred. I just basically installed that bit, like updating your machine. Job done, worked flawlessly. And what the problem was, it was really simple. My nav lights switched on, but they didn't switch off. And I couldn't for the life of me figure out what was going on. But yeah, they fixed it. So yeah, definitely Shaber. I feel so strongly about it that if I had another like application, like even in a house or something like that, I'm very impressed. This aqua-based water maker, myself and Bobby, again, for the energy it consumes, it's extraordinary how effective that is. And this is the MG battery monitor, and now it's working and we get the right voltages and all that sort of stuff, but what hasn't been great until you buy another piece of equipment or you get a wholesaler, a supplier to update it for you, the firmware, which is the operating system, we found that the state of charge doesn't read right sometimes, doesn't read properly. So we know that we have to do a firmware update, and I'm hoping that the state of charge is correct then, because I've put in the amount of amp hours that the batteries are, and it should then correlate with the voltage, the system voltage, and the maximum voltage, how much of the percentage state of charge that the batteries are. So I'll get back to you on that one and see how the update affects, see does it fix that state of charge issue. One other thing that's interesting is, if you remember, if Bobby just pans over, I've got this Whisper Power digital switching as well. So from this panel, I can switch on the generator. I can decide how much shore power I'm going to exploit, right? So I can change how much current is drawn from the dock. And that's important because you can keep flipping breakers and it gets irritating. You know, you lose power throughout the boat. So at the moment, you can see I've got current limits on each charger, which we have two of. And I can stop the generator, and I've been blown away again by this Whisper system. However, I think if I was going to do it all again, I probably would just buy a complete Whisper power system to include the batteries. And that's important because the language that the batteries are speaking from MG is different from that of Whisper. So for support and to remove variables that are different, I would probably just get Whisper batteries and get that entire system, the generator, the chargers, and the digital switching, and therefore also the batteries, all from Whisper. And again, I'm going to tell you that what's really important for you folks to know is a lot of these, even the bigger companies, will just let you fend for yourself if you have problems or you have to sail back somewhere to get somebody to fix it for you. Not with these folks. These folks have thought about it so much that I can simply log into the chargers themselves using any laptop or whatever. When you log in, what happens is the hard drive appears on your computer, and there's a document on it where you can edit the document in Word format or Notepad, let's say, and change the parameters to be what you need them to be. So you don't need an engineer, and to me, that's extremely valuable. If I have needed an engineer or needed to speak to anybody from Whisper, they were on to me immediately. And I chatted to them about the generator, and I had a curious point, which was that I've noticed the generator, although it can produce 8.5 kilowatts of power, I've noticed it at max was producing 6.5. And I asked the guys, is that something wrong with my system? And they're like, no, we just do it for reliability on the engine, so the engine's not over revving in relation to the generator. so you get more durability, which is exactly what I want and need. I would rather have a more reliable, robust piece of equipment than one that's constantly running on its limits. Smart. So they thought about these things, and again, I can highly recommend Whisper Power. No problems so far. One of the things that I really like when it's working is this Vespa Cortex system. Vespa was, as I said in my previous videos, a New Zealand-based company, which was then bought over by Garmin. And I've noticed when we've updated the software on the system, it's suddenly changed from Vespa to Garmin. Great, Garmin. I've got a Garmin watch, and myself and Bobby actually got the same watch. We love it. It's a Fenix Pro if you're interested, and can get you back home. If all these instruments fail, we can actually navigate back home with one of these, and they're solar charged as well. Great piece of kit. So don't get me wrong, I'm not gunning down Garmin or Vespa. I admire their pioneering efforts in this regard. But although the headset has worked, my actual, let's call it the router and the main heart of it, just suddenly failed one day. And I found it with the takeover from Garmin, there was a little bit of confusion about who I go and speak to, the supplier. Anyway, it resulted that I actually ended up, it was safer for my crew and for myself just to buy a new unit. And what's really cool is once I connected to the Wi-Fi, the guys in New Zealand, the folks in New Zealand, saw that I was connected to Wi-Fi and just set it all up for me. I didn't have to touch it. They basically said, oh, you're Apocalypse, this is your email and account number. Boom, over the air with Starlink. They reprogrammed the whole thing for me back in the old ways. Extraordinary. So great advantage. And again, that puts even more credence with Starlink as well. You know, I've got to say, like with Starlink, when we don't have phone reception, we still get internet connection and use WhatsApp. So in my view, whether you like his politics or not, Elon Musk has changed my life and everybody on board and in the sailing community in general. So if you like his politics or not, doesn't really matter. The guy's a visionary and he's delivered, and it's still working to this day. We've done about, obviously Bobby's behind the camera, but about 50,000 miles so far, Bobby, would you say? Yeah. On this vessel, we've done about 50,000 so far, and the Starlink's on the back. And as long as you understand some of the nuances of it, been amazing. So the combination of the Starlink with the Vespa means that I have off-boat monitoring. So it's as if I was sitting here at this desk. So anchor alarms, the depth, if the depth is getting dangerously low, if the voltage of the boat is getting low, I can find out all that information through my telephone that connects to this Vespa system. Extraordinarily valuable, particularly in the winter time when there's high winds and you might be a little bit anxious about if the boat is holding anchor very well, or if not, it was drifting, and you could very quickly jump in the dinghy, get back to ship. Very valuable. Great, so I know it seems like a silly thing, folks, but it's not, trust me. If you didn't have this washing machine, you're taking your laundry to and fro to a laundrette or to the marina office, and in the marina I'm in, to get us to the other side, it's 6 kilometers to walk, and you know, don't really know how long in the dinghy, taking all your washing. Don't underestimate one of these in your boat if you can fit it. Obviously, this is a performance boat, so there was quite a big weight sacrifice in order to have one of these, but I think for convenience, you know, I live full time on board, so I think this is great. And LG, this is actually 12 kilos of normal washing and then 8 kilos of drying. And in order, again, this is what I talk about, the folks down in you know, when you do a semi-custom boat like this is, we actually moved this bulkhead so that we could get it in and out should it break. And it's that kind of level of service and forward thinking that I think is really quite unique to building a boat like this type of boat. And I'm very, I feel very strongly about how much thought and effort the team in Lorient in the north of France have put into constructing this boat. I mean, I'm obviously extremely grateful, but some of these things can be quite life-changing. I'm sure you can understand and appreciate. Again, nobody really wants to talk about these things, but between my, let's say, more old-fashioned sailor friends, they prefer just hand-pump toilets. Really haven't had any problem with electric flush toilets, so I'd continue. If you were going to spec up another boat, I would definitely go with the Jabsco electric flush toilets. And the beauty about Jabsco, And Bobby's behind the camera here, and he's kind of got a bit of a wry smile on his face. If you need parts, you can find them everywhere. I've even been in Guatemala, near the Rio Dulce, and you could get Jabsco parts there also, because the ships, you know, the commercial ships and commercial fishing boats, they use it as well. So stick with Jabsco kit, in my opinion. And one of the things that I've added that's going to be a little bit tricky for Bob to show you is that we've got a holding tank indicator here. And although the sensors I've found so far, the sensors work really, really well, the display of the sensors, this is now broken, this one. So I've been in contact with Gobius, and I'm still waiting to hear the feedback, because I think it's one entrepreneur that's designed these sensors and the display himself. But I've now replaced 2 of these already, and this will be my 3rd one that I've replaced. So I think the cable that goes in the back of this on the other side of the cabinetry is probably maybe a little bit weak, or needs some strengthening, you know, because let's see if there's the cabling, it'll maybe move. So I've got to see what Gobius says about that, but I can't imagine this is very expensive on its own. But the problem is I can't buy that display on its own. So I'll update you on that one as I get along. Yeah, so we've lost the halyard. I'm going to take this all off. Yeah. So we...
Don't pull on that.
Yeah.
No, just in case.
Well, yeah. All right, so what we're doing here, it's pretty chilly here at the moment, but going to send Bobby up. We tried to mouse through an old chafed halyard with a new one, and
we failed.
And, to be honest, Bobby, you needed to go up anyway because we needed to check the port coming through. So this is our suspicion that the port isn't that smooth for running through the halyard, because that's why the old one chafed, because there's not really much tension on it apart from when we engage the hook. So one of the runs mustn't be good, and it's cutting the halyard. So we're gonna have a look at that. Great. Okay, so yeah, what's your fits on the switch, mate? I'll send you up, mate. I'll send you up.
That's all good, yeah.
Let's see. Yeah. So you're gonna go up this side, right?
Yeah, it's got double burden going.
Yeah. Well, hang on a sec, bud. You didn't close the jammer here, man.
Close the jammer.
Okay. That's not enough turns either. All right, good to go.
Wait.
Get my granny slippers on here. Keep my tootsies warm. Yeah, bring it down with you, Bob. Bring it down with you, mate.
Huh?
Bring it with you.
Okay. I mean, I can see no visuals of any damage or... Like, it's running out really smooth.
Okay, yeah, just give it a pull there. Let me pull on you. Yeah, that's perfect. That's running really smooth. My side. Okay. Watch the diamond shroud there, mate. Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
That's high. Ooh.
It's all right. You actually look short up there. All right, great job, mate. Great job. Well done,
Luckily we got
Bobster.
that through.
Well done, Bobster.
Lucky. What was around up there?
What's that?
You shake around.
Yeah, exactly. You wouldn't be doing that at sea, would you, mate? So as I was saying earlier, we had a chafed halyard. This is a new one, and we're replacing it. Common misconception: we're replacing it just with normal polyester line. In this instance, because we're not certain where the original chafe is coming from, the Dyneema. So if you add Dyneema, you're just making the mistake more expensive. Dyneema chafes also. Doesn't mean that it, just because it's Dyneema it won't chafe. Steel chafes. So you've got to find the problem first and see what it is. So we're just making the thing more expensive if we didn't do this right. So Anyway, so this is the furling lock, and what I'm doing here is I'm threading this through the furling lock, and then once I finish that, I'm going to lash on this little T-bar so it can't pull through. Yeah, so we've got to basically do a splice and get all this set back up again. But yeah, generally I have to say we've been pretty impressed with this furling system, the furling locks, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's the beauty is with this whole system. Come on into the camera, into the frame. The beauty about this whole system is that one, you're putting the tension in the mast in the right way, and you're not relying on the halyards too much, right? But the beauty is all the tension goes on the tack line at the deck level, and so we can get, you know, really tight forward stay tension, and then she's, you know, that means that you can replicate it every time.
Big benefit for me of this system is just how effortless it is to change sails on your own, and you can be confident that you're not going to snap any lines because all the weight is coming from a little stainless steel hook at the very top,
Which connects to that.
which connects to this. So, you know, we can be solo sailing while one of us is asleep, change a sail in under 10 minutes sometimes.
On your own, yeah.
On your own, completely solo.
Yeah.
So that's the most amazing part.
One of the other things I'm going to show you in a little bit, I've got to say that, so this furling hook system is from a company called Profile, and you've got to understand, because we're you know, right on the limits of the sails are heavier on this boat, first of all, than your traditional racing sail, deliberately. So the loads are heavier, plus also, you know, it's a heavier boat, so the tension is ironically a lot more than some of the racing boats, yeah, and they've got lighter sails. So the limits, we're kind of pushing the limits on Apocalypse. It's like I've said in some of my previous videos, we're kind of pushing the limits quite a bit on Apocalypse. So the furling systems, which would normally be acceptable, even to some racing boats, the tension and the limits on Apocalypse, we found that actually we need to step up the game a little bit more. And so we've been working with Profile, who I have to say have been very diligent and really appreciate what we're doing here, you know, trying to give everybody a good insight into what it really is, one, like to own this boat, and two, which suppliers are good. And I have to say, Profile, Bob, if you could just grab that furling system there, and I'll show everybody what it's all about. So this is a Profile furling hook, and at the bottom we did have a ratchet mechanism, you know, a continuous line furler, and the ratchet we found just didn't cut it because the apparent winds for us, like, and we've tested it in 55 knots apparent, especially for our J3. And then with our Code Zero, and particularly the Jenica, the Code Zero apparent wind can be quite high. Obviously, we're turning up into the wind, and then we switch over to our J1 or your traditional solid or Genoa. But because the limits are so high, we decided that we're going to switch these over to Profile's next drum, 6.5. And this basically doesn't have a ratchet, but what it does have is a line that's not continuous, just like your traditional furling drum. And we're just going to run it from the furling drum straight to these winches that you saw us using earlier on. And when it's light winds and we want to pull it in, we can pull it in by hand because the bearing is so good, and that's what I'm trying to show you here. Look at that, lovely bearing on it. But if the wind picks up and we're in a kind of slightly more dangerous scenario, we can just use the traditional style furling line. And I'm a lot happier about this. This is a little bit more suitable for our needs. But again, you know, not everybody is going to be doing the stuff that we're doing, or you know, the limits and the loads on Apocalypse. So there you go. So I have to give that back to you, Bob. Thanks. So yeah, Profile, yes.
So this on the mast is lashed to the mast of big Dyneema. As the head of the sail is hoisted up from the bottom, it comes in and hooks in like so. Once that's hooked in, that is now completely locked in and secure, as long as there's tension on there. So when you're letting it down single-handed, all it is giving from the bottom.
We give it a shake basically, and
a little shake, and it will come straight out.
Yeah. Key is
there's a locking mechanism inside. But yeah, that's all it is.
Works well.
Very well.
get an impression of it's pretty high mast, you know. There's no question we're the tallest in the marina around us at the moment. You can also, I don't know whether you can see it in the camera, you can see quite a lot of pre-bend in that mast. So there's a nice curvature towards the back of the boat, towards aft. And that gives you more belly, more power. And also, anybody with a sharp eye will notice we don't have a topping lift. And also, we don't have any backstays. Yeah, you generally, on these fast cats, you don't have any backstays. Backstays, even on most multi-hulls, you just don't really have them. So Bobby's still up the mast. I can't really tell what he's up to, but this sits in the mast like that. Halyard comes through here and then goes down through the centre of that. So to pull the hook, to pull that furling lock up on top. So yeah, it's just a little bit fidgety trying to get the halyard down there. So we send it with a little bit of weight, a little bit of kit on it, and mouse it through, pull it through. Yeah, unfortunately, because that's quite a turn. When we lashed the two halyards together, it didn't turn out too well.